And this one, I'm just going to say this word, and we're going to get to it, and we're going to explain it, but this phrase, Snapchat for hospitals. What does that mean? We're going to get into that here in just a minute, but let's welcome to the show now the CEO of Ease Applications. It is Patrick De La Roza. Hello, Patrick.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks so much for joining us. We love talking about different ways that technology is being applied to the healthcare industry and different aspects and different things we can figure out, to help improve lives. And that's what I want to talk about for everybody who's just joining us. Maybe we can get just a little bit of a background on your role in the industry and what Ease does.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Ease is a software that is built to let you talk to your families from the moment they come into your care at a hospital until they leave. And so I'm a CEO and co-founder of it. This actually started with my partners, who are two pediatric cardiac anesthesiologists and a cardiac surgeon, and they literally had a scared mom who they were about to perform open heart surgery on, and they decided to use their personal phones to keep her updated throughout the surgery. And she was actually so incredibly grateful for what they did that she came back the next day and scrapbooked all of the messages and gave it to them as a thank you for what they did. And so it was sort of that aha moment, that light bulb that went off when we realized there was this need. I personally have sat in a waiting room and not received information, and we needed to change that. And so that's how the company was started.
That is so important. I've personally also done that as well. It's so nerve-wracking when you're sitting there waiting for somebody going through a surgery, not knowing where they are in the process, not knowing anything, really. You're just sitting there staring at a television waiting to find out. This is great. This is such a good use. So you saw that there was this issue that needed to be solved. So going into creating this, what is Ease as a platform and how exactly does it work?
You mentioned earlier the name Snapchat for Hospitals. It's kind of a nickname we've been given, and that's because what we allow is the hospital to securely update families really anywhere. And so we do that by allowing them to send text, pictures, and videos throughout the process of what's happening. So as an example, let's say your loved one is having surgery. Rather than sitting in a waiting room wondering what's happening, you're able to get sort of a play-by-play via text, pictures, and videos. And then in addition, for security, we have those messages disappear after 60 seconds. And that's due to patient privacy and all of the legality around that. But it's really just a way for hospitals to connect families and create transparency that really hasn't existed prior.
That's so important. I mean, communication is such an important issue of that, and that's certainly something that I'm sure brings a lot of relief to a lot of people. When you're talking about sending it, you said it lasts 60 seconds, and talking about the security side of it, how do you keep those messages secure so it's just delivering to that one person?
So it's a combination of things. Part of that is the infrastructure that we have in place at our company. Part of that are the policies in place. And then also it has to do with the patient is really the one that is choosing the recipients of these messages. So as an example, if I was having surgery, if my son was having surgery tomorrow, I would choose my wife, my parents, her parents, my brother and sister. And now all of those folks are going to get the updates that are sent out from the hospital. And so we do that securely through our application. And as well as the patient is the one that elects who receives those communications.
And would it be a doctor or a nurse or somebody on the hospital staff that's sending out those notifications?
It is, yes. So as an example, in surgery, there's a nurse that is called a circulating nurse, and that nurse is usually the one that updates the families if that ever happens, and they also have a variety of functions that they do. And so typically in a surgery, that circulating nurse is the one that's communicating out. Or if you're using this in the intensive care unit, that floor nurse is able to do that. And then we even have some physicians that will actually update families as well. So when they're rounding on their patients or they've done a visit, they're able to then communicate out what that prognosis was or what the care plan is for that day.
Very cool. How far has it been adopted so far? Do you see more and more hospitals using it, or who's using it right now, I guess?
So we're in over 60 hospitals now, and we're very excited, very pleased. We're in 4 of the top 10 pediatric hospitals. And so that's really sort of helped set the stage for many other hospitals to see that a lot of the leaders in the space are using us. But we're used in both pediatrics and adults and really in all areas of the hospital, which is one of the things that I'm very excited about. Is not only this was born in surgery, and that's where we started, but now we're being used in all areas of the hospital and starting to grow nationally as well.
Wow. Talking about, this kind of this new revolution that we have with healthcare technology. There's just so many different applications that are happening. This is a fantastic one, and we see it across the industry of using different adopting things that we've been using for a while and putting it into healthcare, because it seems like healthcare tech is at least from the patient side, has kind of lagged for so long, and now we're getting to finally see this revolution. Why do you think that's happening now?
I think hospitals are, they're very risk averse. They are slower to adopt technologies. If you think about the diffusion of innovation curve, you have your laggards. Hospitals really sit in that laggard space. But what's happening is they're becoming more comfortable with it. And so as an example, telemedicine is something that is now becoming much more commonplace in hospitals where, rather than having to drive to the doctor, I can actually basically FaceTime from the comfort of my own home and get a treatment plan, get even medicines prescribed from the comfort of my own home. And so what that does is it's really sort of creating a comfort level for hospitals, and they're starting to use technology in ways that really other industries have been doing for a long time.
Where do you see maybe ease in general, just ease in particular has for your company, but just healthcare tech in general, maybe going in like the next 5 years?
So what is really happening now is this shift towards transparency, and that's really what is happening in healthcare in many ways, not only in what hospitals are charging and the type of care that you receive, but also in the communication side of it. The one room in a hospital that hasn't changed in 100 years is a waiting room. And so we see ease really revolutionizing that and really changing it so that you no longer have to sit in the dark. You can stay connected. I often say to hospitals that we talk to, if I can track my food on Uber Eats, or track when Uber is going to arrive at my house, why can't I track my loved one inside of a hospital? And so we really see ease will continue to grow, and our hope is that it continues to grow and become the standard of this type of communication for hospitals.
Well, it's such a great platform. Definitely solving a need that is clearly, blatantly there that needed some solving. So congratulations on that. For people who want to use ease, if I guess it has to be one of the hospitals that's using it so far, but how do they go about using it, or how do they encourage maybe their local hospital to start picking this up?
Yeah, so to use ease, you either have to be invited by a hospital that's using it as a recipient, or obviously a patient, but it's really about telling your surgeons. It really comes down to the patient and the families of the patients feeling empowered to ask their surgeons for this, to ask their clinical providers to say, hey, I want this type of transparency, I want this type of communication. So it's one of those technologies that people just need to be aware of. It exists. There's no reason to be sitting in the dark anymore, and you need to tell your surgeon about it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live to talk about it. Again, I think that's very important work that you're doing. I think that's great. It helps people's lives, and it's using technology for change and for good, which is something that we always appreciate talking about here at Digital Trends. And thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you very much.